Stripclub Bouncers, what was your worst or weirdest night like? I worked at a pretty small club, usually 3-4 bouncers and me, the door guard. Whenever we had a call on the radio about a fight, we all had to respond. However, all the bouncers were giant, Michael Clark Duncan looking guys, and when the place was packed, they had some trouble getting through the crowd. I, however, was much slimmer than they and would often end up being the first to arrive. Well, one time, I was the first to arrive to break up a fight by the stage. All I remember is showing up, dodging one punch and then trying to grab a guy. That was it. Next thing I know, I wake up in a hospital bed. They eventually showed me the camera footage. Right after I grabbed the guy, another picked up one of our heavy wooden seats and bashed my head with it. It was scary to watch. However, one of the bouncers and I were really good friends, and as soon as he saw me get hit, he plowed through the crowd like a raging rhino. I barely even touched the ground before he grabbed me, hoisted me onto his shoulder, punched the chair guy and clotheslined one other on his way to get me to safety. I probably owe him my life. Tripper's ex came in, and they ended up having Shreks in the mop closet. Nasty. Meanwhile, her then BF shows up and orders a drink looking for her. As he's walking to the bathroom, they come out of the mop closet. Ex swings. Fight breaks out and the ex's friends jump in. We get it under control and we are getting them out. One of the other bouncers then takes a 750 milliliters bottle to the back of the head. Knockout. Skull cracked. Blood everywhere. Busiest street in town. 7 cop cars are on the scene in a minute. 14 people attested, including our owner. 6 guys. The ex, 3 bouncers, 2 troopers, and the now boyfriend and his friend. Wisconsin is lame and arrests everyone involved, including the security at the establishment. I thought about it for a long time and I really couldn't come up with a single night that was a great deal weirder/worse than most others. It was a pretty strange job in general. Things like brawls, anal bleach, drunken dancers, bartenders, waitresses, being threatened with weapons, puke everywhere, stalkers, guys nutting in their pants from a lap dance, and countless other oddities make for an interesting work environment. If I had to name the single weirdest thing, I guess it was the dancer who would occasionally spray the crowd with breast milk. We had a guy on angel dust steal the valet tray of toiletries, go into the handicapped stall at her club, lube himself up like a greased pig, get totally naked and begin to furiously fap while babbling about Jesus. 14 security dudes, all of whom were either pro fighters, ex-mil or both, the smallest of which was me at 5 minutes and 11 seconds, 255, tried to extract this guy doing a stall breach. He ran through us like a collective wet paper bag. We had to choke the frick out of him to get him under control. It took about 10 minutes, with 14 huge dudes. Someone ripped out a nearby stop sign and beat up his own car with it when a girl turned him down. We had amateur night Sundays. Literally every black girl and guy in the area came in. There was no room. Demo CDs and flyers littered the floor. Everyone was to go through a metal detector and was wanted or patted down. Just imagine the piles of gaudy fake jewelry. Had it been real, the Golden City would have met its rival. Detecting weapons on the women was literally impossible. So every girl could go on stage and just do her own thing. No limits. We were more lax on touching and could barely enforce it anyways, because the crowd to bouncer ratio was 30:1. Even so, backup was not getting to you quickly due to crowded rooms. Probably 15 girls were all on this small stage and all up on each other. 2 got too close and apparently took someone's business or space, while a metal razor blade from a box cutter came out and then someone's breasts were cut open all over the stage. Needless to say, the cutie and cutter booked it. Most of the upstanding crowd bailed. We were all fired. Club shut down a few days. Never went back. The weirdest night I witnessed. I was trying to get into a trip club, but there was a commotion ahead. I tried to get past the crowd to see it, but all I saw was blue spikes above the people in front of me. After the crowd started to disperse, I saw one bouncer with a guy in a Sonic the Hedgehog mascot costume on the ground restraining him, and the other bouncer tacking the man in a hot dog costume. Was an odd night. The weirdest thing to me were the gigantic brawls that happened every couple of months. Lots of gangsters that were armed in the club. but no one ever got shot. At the club I worked at there was a lot of fricking going on. It wasn't forced or coerced, but it was expected in the environment. The girls weren't pimped, but it was an environment that lent itself to craziness. The girls were treated like shoot. The owner was a shooty human being that used his money and power and connections to frick girls he'd have no chance of otherwise. A chubby, middle-class pussy that abused his power. They all hated him. The girls, I mean. It was a dark place. I don't miss it. My boyfriend used to be a strip club security guard. In addition to be hit on quite often by the male customers, he had a tripper stare intently at him as she licked her own nipples, and countless customers trying to stir shoot. The worst was probably a man who threw a glass near the front door, breaking the very expensive ID scanner and giving him a scarring cut on his thumb and knee. Oh, and he can't smell. So his female manager used to walk out to the door when it wasn't busy and drop farts near him. Not a bouncer, but I used to work as a rep for a strip club in Spain. I was one of the girls outside. Catcalling meant to get them to come in and spend their money on our girls. One of the worst fights I've seen was when a group of about 10 got into a brawl without Hulk-sized bouncers. Back info. We had a long set of concrete stairs leading down to our club underground. I heard the commotion at the top of the stairs and saw about 6 guys get pulled out by the bouncers. Blood everywhere. The last guy refused and started fighting back. My boss, the biggest mother F I've ever seen, grabbed the back of his neck and smashed his teeth into the concrete stairs. He then proceeded to pull him up the stairs and smash his head on the curb. All the while, he was smiling. He was also a married man with 2 kids, but boy did he love his Lithuanian trippers. The less English they spoke the better. He rented an apartment across from the strip club and took a new one there almost every other night. When he was done he would bring them back and get picked up by his wife moments later. I was robbed by him. I got in the middle of a beating by the police. I had offers for paid holidays there. I've seen women been bashed to pieces. The list goes on. I have heaps of stories if anyone is interested. Worked in strip club in Ohio in college. One guy called Cowboy Rick. He kept his dog in his jacked up truck and told everyone he was an ex-pro bull rider and couldn't feel the left side of his face from a bull headbutt or whatever. Was in love with Tripper, let's call her Cinnamon Span. We walk out together to her car. Rick follows me and her to car. I hurry her into her car and tell her to lock door. Rick and I argue that she is leaving with him and I assure him they are not. He pulls knife on me and drunkenly swings in a long wide arc towards my face. I block, get wrist control, take knife away and smash his face multiple times into hood of Cinnamon's car. I drag him to my truck parked few spaces over, grab zip tie and cuff him to bumper while I wait for cops to show up. Hopefully he can't feel the other side of his face now too. Quit working there about 4 months later after I graduated and moved back to Maryland. Not a bouncer, but went to a club once and asked one of the girls what the weirdest thing she ever saw there was. She said a guy once went into the bathroom, took all his clothes off, came out of the bathroom and started jerking off. I bartended at a small strip club, more of a TI bar, and we don't have bouncers. As a small lady, 5 feet 3 inches, 95 pounds, people think they can get away with climbing on stage and trying to pull the dancers onto them, or trying to solicit them for after-work activities while sitting at the bar. This bar is the only topless bar in a 60-mile radius, mind you. So we get people who are vacationing at their summer cabin and golfing, snowboarding, etc. So being a small town, we have regulars who help out when I work. And the average night is me taking drink orders and yelling at people from behind the bar. I have had to pull people away from the stage due to sleeping, grabbing, and throwing drinks. Crazy nights happen maybe once every 2 weeks, which includes a nice game of catch between bartender and a drunken a-hat with a beer bottle, because they're pissed off due to them being grabby and being removed from the stage area. They assumed, because they're from out of town, they can get away with anything. Also, when people bring their significant other with them and go up to the stage with their so, they decide to threaten the dancers when they get close to their so. What on earth are they doing there then? I love bartending, but I hate people some days. Not a strip club bouncer, but while at a strip club a guy managed to run and punch the bouncer in the face. then run away. He was never seen again. Aunt I used to work for at a men's gallery would hit people he didn't like from behind and get me to throw them out. One night he hit a friend of mine from behind and hurt him pretty bad. I slapped this owner aunt so hard he was cowering on the floor against the bar and started to well up crying. I popped open the till and grabbed about $350 and a liter bottle of Johnny Walker Blue, grabbed my mate and fricked off. In Canada they throw $1 and $2 coins instead of $1 bills. One night there was a group of guys on a bachelor party getting pretty drunk, especially the groom. He was basically sitting in pervert row with rows of shots being handed to him and stacks of loonies sitting on the counter in front of him. His buddies were wandering around and having a good time while it was pretty obvious this guy was barely holding on to consciousness. After a bit one of the friends comes running up and tells the groom, "Let's go." My opinion is here. The groom slowly stumbles, grabs the probably $100 and loonies sitting in front of him and then pauses. He looks down at his hands, looks at the girl spread eagle on stage, back down at his hands and then back up and heaves the 100 or so heavy coins at her. The trooper sat there dumbfounded for about 30 seconds, not sure if she should tell the bouncers to kick his ass or be happy he just threw $100 plus at her. Eventually she just went back to dancing, but she was obviously perturbed by this whole mess.